How's everyone doing tonight? So, just to jump right into it, the topic we're going to be going over is analyzing successful trades. Just like every topic that we talk about with the classes that I try and help you guys with, I want to kind of alliterate a new perspective as to how you may look at things compared to how non-successful to successful traders kind of analyze what they do in the market. So with looking at the trades that we win or the trades that we lose, also since we did talk about the losses a lot more this past Tuesday, I wanted us to get more in-depth information about like how to review a successful trade. A lot of people they hit green, they sell for let's just say 30-40%. They're not pleased with it. There's always more they want. They don't really rely on, okay, what did I do to make that trade I just did? They're not reviewing anything. They're just going off like first impressions of, okay, I did it 5 times in a row now. I don't have to review. It's just going to keep coming like this naturally to me. And eventually everything usually catches up to you, whether it's a massive red trade, a small red trade, if you're disciplined enough to sell for a small loss. So many things align when you start to research like your actual DD on trades you've taken, especially the winning side. I'm pretty sure many people in here, if not any traders at all, when they have a very good trade, most of them are just, okay, I did good. I'm just going to keep trying to do that again tomorrow, not really diving into like what did they do to make that trade happen. Once you figure out, like we talked about last class, all the losses you take and why you take those, eventually when you readjust, you're not changing any system, you're not changing anything different, you're just readjusting as you're learning what works and what doesn't. As you take out what doesn't work from analyzing those losing trades, eventually all you're going to have left to do is a calculated risk for a loss, or you're going to win every time. And you have to do the same thing with winning trades. Figure out what worked best, figure out what fit for your personality as a trader. And then as you grow, you know exactly what to look for every time you enter a trade. And you understand, okay, this is a win or lose. I'm not guaranteed a win every time, but this is my setup. And I know that because I've looked back on my trades as to why I took them, what has to align, what has to work out. So you start to just wait for proper setups. Your discipline's improving, your mindset is less stressed about being wrong, and you're just playing the setup because you know, okay, this is a high probability of me winning right now. And if I'm not right, my loss is going to be minimized. So just to start right into it, if you guys have any questions along the way, don't be afraid to like speak up or like stuff that you are struggling with possibly. It will give me more to talk on from like one-on-one perspective kind of say to someone. But when you look at successful trades, the ones that work out best, what worked best for you personally? Like, what was it that actually made it work? A lot of people ask me, like, what's my favorite setup? It's not really the fact of this and this are my favorite. It's just those work best for me. So they turn into like my ideal favorite setups, you can say. Everyone has their own strong suit, whether it's just playing trends, you play the volume increase, maybe you play a specific pattern, like maybe head and shoulder, possibly a falling wedge. You use a system that works in your favor. And Ange just said bounces and retests. If you know what's best for you, why not keep repeating that and waiting for that actual setup to come into play? A lot of people they get like tied up in this is boring. I don't want to keep doing the same thing. So they force stuff to just feel like they're doing more than they have to. People like that excitement. They like that idea of I got to trade more than just one time. It's not enough. If that's not what works for you, why do you want to keep doing that? Are you really trading for like the actual emotional growth, the financial growth, or do you just want to have that excitement of like I just want to put money in the market today? Me personally, I can go days without trading. It's not because I just don't want to risk anything. It's not because I'm scared or I just don't want to do anything. When I don't see what I need to have low risk, high reward, I'm not going to play. So me understanding that, me figuring out what works best for me, I'm not forcing trades every day because for most traders, that's a successful day. Whether you win or lose, you just want to put money in the market. And you don't always want to look at it that way. I like to treat my trading account kind of like a bank account. I don't have to use the money every day. I pick and choose specifically what I want, what I need. And the same way with trading, if I know a setup is in my favor, I'm going to take that risk. But if it's just a FOMO or like we're breaking high of the day, I want to get in before it's too late just in case it keeps running, you force a play that may not be what you usually do. So if you lose on that, all you have to tell yourself is, I can't do that again. There's no like readjustment. You're just telling yourself, trying to get discipline. I can't do that. I've told myself before I can't do that. You have to stop doing that. So eventually, once you don't do that kind of FOMO trade or you're forcing a setup that you may not even do usually, eventually you stop doing it and it cuts out those extra trades you're throwing in for the day. And then what reasoning for the entry on the win? What made you buy in? Was the pattern specifically in the spot you need it to be? A lot of people, they see a pattern and they may get in too late or maybe even too early off anticipation. You need confirmation based off the setup to like enter the play and trust it and realize, okay, at this point, my risk is like yada yada. And I know the upside potential for the gap fill or my PT that I want on price action is around this zone. You have a rough area of what the risk to reward can be based off the chart instead of just entering and like hoping that it goes in your favor. And then when it starts to go against you, you're just looking for a reason to keep holding. There's no solid evidence because you didn't look at it before entering to focus on, okay, if it breaks this specific spot or if the setup breaks out in this area, I have to sell for a small loss. Many people, they look for a substitute. Okay, this was my cut, but like, what about this though? What if this doesn't break and then I sold for nothing? You have to figure out, okay, this is the reason I'm going in on the trade. This is why I'm buying. And then if it does go against you, you have to prepare for that. You have to understand what you're risking, not from a financial perspective, but based off just the chart. So it limits your emotions as much as possible. When you trade just the chart setup, you're not focused on the money as much because you understand from just the chart alone, money's a byproduct, which everyone should understand that by now, but it gives you a calming mindset knowing the chart's going to give me my outcome. If you trust the chart, you'll make money based off what the chart gives you. So that has to be your main reasoning. What is like thinking about it beforehand? Find the purpose of it, the execution, why you took it. It has to be a proper setup. It has to be in your favor with high probability to win compared to losing. And then gaining confidence with wins. This, I feel, is one of the biggest setbacks that people have. And it's not because of like, I'm not saying you're overconfident, but a lot of people, they take wins and think they're invincible. They think they can't be touched. They forget how they have to sell if they're red. They may hold longer than usual. They may oversize based off the fact of the last X amount of trades. If I would have held longer or if I would have sized heavier. So you get that adrenaline going and you're thinking, I'm not going to lose. I'm just going to keep winning. So you change the system. You're not readjusting anything. You're changing the entire approach that you have when you trade. As you increase your sizing, you're not only increasing how much money you can make, but also the amount of money you can lose. And one thing people don't tend to talk about, sizing heavy, you're increasing the emotions as well. Your emotions are going to be a lot more intact with more money into the position. You're not going to focus on the chart as much. So as you grow the system, that's where your confidence should be at, is the system. It's not the success that you're having. The reason that you win is because the chart worked the way you saw it. It wasn't luck. It wasn't anything special to make you get all happy. That's how it works. You're going to have wins. You're going to have losses. So as you grow with the system, it's not the success you always want to worry about because at any point the system may not work, but that's still a success if you manage that risk. So you can't just focus on success with being I made money or I finished green. If you had a system that had like this specific loss amount and you followed that perfectly, that is a successful trade because you played the system that you had in play. Hang on, a few more things here. I also started making a pre-market plan last night, tweaked it a little bit this morning, 2 hours before market, executed 4 to 4 today. I realized adding text notes in the chat from my pre-market, from the chart from my pre-market plan worked out better for me. I tend to forget and look back at my pre-market plan since I only have one screen that I'm trading off of. So a goose, I'm pretty like I've talked to you a few times. Having words on the charts, like you actually type them and you can see them in front of you. That's what I tell a lot of people to do with like sticky notes. But when you do it with the chart, that's like the next level of discipline because like you have nowhere to really look. The sticky notes people avoid, but when you type on the chart, that's honestly genius. I recommend that to people. I've never thought of that before for me. I do it in like the notes off the chart, but never where I could see it every day in front of me. Told his account on Twitter to pay himself. Took his 5K account to 13K and lost 11K today. Yeah, but that's another big thing about growing accounts, which a lot of people, they try and teach this and like talk about it, but many traders don't see it the same way. When you make money in the market, you don't really make money. The money is yours when you withdraw that payment because eventually, if you don't actually pull it out of the account, it's not really yours yet to use or to actually like reap the benefit of what you've been doing. So I'm always telling people Until you withdraw that money you made, it's not technically your money. Withdrawing is very important. It's not about the size of your portfolio that you're trying to grow. It's always about how much you're paying yourself and able to like hold on to that you make as you make trading a career if you choose to do that. It's a huge issue people have because they think they need X amount of dollars to keep trading. If you can take, let's say, $1,000 account to 10,000, why do you need to keep over 4 to 5 thousand or even $3,000? Yes, you're going to make less money, but it's also going to prevent you, just like what Mr. Trades just said about this guy from 5K to 13, then back down to 2K. You get overconfident. Like you get very cocky with your ego, which I can speak on next. You think you're untouchable. 5K into 13. Well, I can take 13 into 50 now. They start to think of these like hypothetical hope numbers, stuff that they know is not going to happen, but it could. But they're using historical results to basically form their next trades, which you guys know I say this a lot. The market is different all the time. It's never consistent. So you have to adjust with the market and not just follow the same thing that you do every single day. So with ego, when you have confidence, obviously you guys know that as your ego grows, you don't focus on taking those losses or I have to sell here for a loss. This is like why, because the setup is breaking, the chart's not holding like I thought it would. When that ego gets going, just like with thinking success is like the only answer, green, making money, you start oversizing. You get very confident in your system, which is fine, but you have to pick and choose when you do that. The market has to be in your favor. If the market is showing what it needs to and you keep the risk minimal, you can increase the size of what you use and keep it minimal from a losing perspective compared to a winning perspective. You just have to prepare for everything. And of course, the biggest thing, consistency. With confidence, you have to be consistent. You have to be disciplined. You have to follow like the same system every day. Wait for those setups. It could get boring every once in a while. You may not trade some days. A lot of people, I'm pretty sure, may not be able to handle not trading, especially if they do this full time or this helps pays the bills. It makes you feel very, I don't want to say useless, but you get very upset when you don't trade just one day because you think about, oh, I could have caught this one. I could have done this. I could have made a quick 10% on a play right here. So then you start forcing these scenarios in your head to force a trade or get into something before it's too late. You have to stick to the same system, keep that consistency going, and work your account up to the point where you can risk a few $100s if you want to on a play. But as you're growing, you can't risk that with a small account or force things you may not be able to recover from. So continue trusting the chart and not just the ego and the hype that you may have. The chart is always going to tell what's going to happen. Obviously, it's always 50-50. You can win, you can lose. There's not really no in between unless you want to go break even. But you have to understand the chart is what's going to give you your outcome of a win or a loss. So you have to trust that. You can't let your head tell you this is the setup, like this is the one that can make me a lot of money. I'm going to go heavier than usual because I played this 4 times and it's worked every single time. A lot of the situations you put yourself in, it's the one time you try it different that it affects you. Just because it's worked 100% of the time, you think it's always going to be that way. For me, my karma is always very bad. I'm always sizing more than usual after a good week. I still keep my loss where I'm supposed to. But when you increase your size and your loss is still the same as size and normal, that money's also going to increase for a loss. So you get that like overhead ego. You start thinking you're invincible. You don't even like look at the chart as much. You just analyze stuff and think you're right every time. You have to stay disciplined in that aspect and let the chart do everything for you. It seems like profitability seems more likely when using bigger port, Rippy's SPX trades, and being comfortable holding down 50% until the market turns. Or is this idea a new trader has? So, Dr. K, the biggest thing I'm going to say about that, the reason Hassan, aka Rippy, and a lot of other traders I know that are very consistent and have like the big portfolios, it's not really the fact of having money, but understanding, okay, the chart, it can still have a move in my favor. It's not at the breaking point yet where I have to sell because I'm down X amount. A lot of people, and myself included, when I'm in a trade, as long as it's showing strength in like what I need to happen, say it's like the time decay is catching up, theta's picking up, IVs not in my favor. So I'm losing value, even though the stock and the chart are holding the trend that I need or the setup that I need. I'm not going to sell yet. If you size properly, you're not going to get freaked out of a position because you're down X amount, even though the chart is still holding, because you size properly for it. If you keep a risk of like, say, 10% loss and you're down 30%, but the chart's still holding, it may be a little different for many people. But I tend to usually size for losses that are 60, 70%, sometimes even more than that. If I just size to lose the entire thing, if it comes down to that, I love playing the chart and just letting that do everything for me. I mean, I've held down 90% for a contract to come back and me sell like 50 to 60. Yes, I was down 90 only and I only sold for 50 or 60%. So overall I was down more than I was up on the trade, but I was able to get out of it green. When I was down that much and it was coming back, your only thought process is I don't want to hold it in case it goes back to red. I came back this much. The thought process I try to keep in mind is, okay, so I bought in at, let's say, $1 a contract, so 1.0, the contract goes down to 0.2, then it comes back to $1. The only thing I'm like processing through my mindset is, okay, if I would have entered at 0.2, I would technically be up 500% right now back at $1. So I will sell based off if I would have entered better, if I would have executed better, this is where I would be. Not the fact of, okay, I entered at $1, it's back to $1. Let's see if I can get at least 20% out of this. From where it just was to where it went, it moved 500%. Now I'm back to break even. My execution was crap, apparently. So I'm just going to sell and get out of it. That's one thing that you have to really process is not like what you're up in the moment, but where it came from when you were red on the trade. I mean, even selling 10% loss when you were down 80 or 90%, that's still a win in my eyes. You were able to save a loss that could have been a lot worse. So like slowly touching back on like bigger ports, as long as you size proper, you should be able to hold a little bit better. I'm not saying like if you have $1,000 account and you size $50 on the position that like you can hold the zero, but it all just depends on your personality as a trader. What can you afford to lose? Hassan is able to size in to lose possibly 10 to 15,000. Some people can't even lose $500. But if you're sizing personally $500 on your position and your risk is 500, you can hold down 50%, down 70% because you're sizing what you're risking. So if Hassan does the same thing, sizing 10,000 and his risk is usually 15, he's technically saving money if that goes like worst possibility. The more I trade, more I'm getting numb to my losses. And that's exactly how it's supposed to be. As you trade and as you lose, you learn. Like the only way to learn in trading from like an emotional standpoint, not just paper trading, you lose, you figure it out. Trading with real money affects your mindset and your emotions way different. You have to be very in tune to trade real money when you actually are a trader. So as you lose, you'll learn what not to do. You'll learn how the emotions affect you. You understand how to do things a different way so you don't get emotionally attached to a position. And that all grows as you trade. You can't just sit there and say, oh, if I would have entered here, I would have lost. I just want to do this instead. Being in a position, if you size heavy, you're going to have high emotions. If you are able to size to a point where you don't have emotions during the trade, you're down 30%, you don't even care. Maybe you don't even know what you're down because you're not watching your P&L, you're just watching the chart. When you get to that point, that's when trading starts to thrive for you because you're not overconfident. You're not thinking that you're too good for the system, so you're going to hold longer. You're intact with what you have to do. You're consistently doing the same system. You trust it. You're sizing the same as every time you trade. Not one trade going to throw you off because of that. Same, I do get mad at myself when I don't stick to my plan and let the losses get bigger than they should have, but I'm still working on getting strict to my rules and remind myself there's another trade around the corner. Goose, that's perfect. That's literally perfect. The idea of I missed this trade, I want to get in it now before it keeps going, or like the what ifs on if I would have entered. There's always going to be another big trade. You have to track it. You have to be prepared, understand the bigger picture on chart setups. The bigger time frames are going to tell the picture for a lot of trades. And the lighter you size, the longer you can hold because you're not as emotional when you go from green to red or maybe up 200% back down to only being up 50%. A lot of people just want to get out to secure that win. So as you size less, you learn to hold longer and let the chart do the work for you. Fortunately, I never had that problem. I don't like to take trades for no reason because why should I risk money which I'm not prepared to lose? That's a nice thing to write right there. And it makes no sense to trade without a plan as why to risk money for literally no reason. And so that's one of the things that me and you have talked about a lot. Trading with no idea why. You enter a trade with no idea what you're going to do, or like looking at the chart wise, explain to someone why you entered. One thing I like to think about is if someone was watching me trade that's never traded before, what would I tell them my reasoning was to enter this trade? To teach someone, not just like, oh, I entered because of this. If you're trying to teach them how to learn trading and didn't like they have no idea what this is, they don't understand anything, no terminology, nothing. How would you explain it to them? So I always look for the simplest setups that are always the best usually. But then when you look back at them, there's nothing that really threw you off or that you should have done better because you enter at the best possible risk to reward. Win or lose, you're content either way. I learned the hard way, but these classes are definitely helping me. I'm glad these are helping. I'm glad you're taking this into consideration. After what amount is considered a big port? So a big port for a lot of people, I feel is different. I mean, if you guys want, type in the chat, like what is your quote unquote, that is a big port amount. 5,000, 10,000, 25,000 to get margin, 30, 50. If you guys want to type that while I keep talking, you can. So replicating successful trades. When repeating, you're looking for the same setup. A lot of people, like I was talking about earlier, they feel like when they hit green over and over, it's just going to keep happening because maybe they're having luck. Maybe it's because, oh, I feel good about this. Not many people focus on the realization you're playing a setup that makes the money for you. It's not luck. It's just you're putting probability in your favor. So when you like figure out what did I do to make this happen? What trade happened to make this result? What what did the candles do? Was the volume different than usual? You want to break down everything that you saw for that winning trade. It's like journaling your successful trades, journaling your losing trades. When having wins, what do you do that works? What do you do that you are best with? Are you patient so you can hold longer? Are you impatient so you have to be a scalper? You have to break down what you saw and why you entered the way you did and truly get into the fact of, okay, what do I have to look for again to make this happen? What was something that maybe stood out that I can look for next time? So my probability of losing is way less compared to my win if it goes in my favor. So when you're catching the move, that is not the most important part. When you're executing, you're buying in. Okay, I bought in. That's not the most important part of every trade. It's when you're looking for the entry. Basically, like when a lion is hunting, you're scavenging, you're looking, you're waiting for the best moment. That is what's most important in a trade, quote unquote, within, because you're not technically actually like buying in just yet. You want to prepare for everything that's about to happen. It's the anticipation of trying to figure out, okay, where on the chart am I looking to enter? What zone, maybe what trend, what EMA am I looking at? Indicators telling me why I should buy in. You're looking for the entry point before it comes up. If you're able to figure out what you have to find to be successful with the trade, most of the time you see it before it happens. You get that anticipation and you wait for it to happen and then you strike for it. This will put odds more in your favor because you're more hesitant, you're more patient, you're waiting for the setups to align. If you have no system, you don't know what you look for every day, and you just buy off a green candle, you're going to do this and lose and not know why. There's nothing to really learn from other than, okay, find a reason behind why you're entering. If you have a reason and you have that system, you know how to understand setups. You know when a loss is going to happen, you have to cut it. And that's where we get into the next bullet point. Every trade, you learn something. Win or lose, you're going to learn. And if you don't learn anything, you have to find something. Because no matter what you do, there's always going to be better. There's always going to be a worse. So you have to find a center ground with what you can teach yourself so that you only go for what's in your favor. I'm hoping you guys are realizing as you dive deep into this, you literally can't lose with trading. Like it's literally impossible. You have to be disciplined. You have to understand what fits you as a trader. And once you have successful trades, you're just looking for what it takes to find those every time back to back to back. Because at some point, all you're going to be left with is those small losses because you're just accustomed to taking them. And then when you have a win, maybe one win's going to outweigh four losses. So all you need is one win every five trades, and you're basically break even. If your odds are 50 to 70% hit rate, you're guaranteed to make money based off that right there. 1 out of 5, you're green. So 1 green, 4 red, you're break even. So if you hit at least 50%, you're basically hitting 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5. You're not going to lose long term. You're going to grow slowly. You just have to be very disciplined with cutting for a loss early. You can't hold extremely long in the red. Those long holds that are taking you down and making your account diminish, that's what's going to make you never actually hit that upscale for your account growth or just the mental and emotional stability that you're going to have. And of course, the biggest thing about successful trades, you don't force any setup. You don't enter because like this is the one, or I know this is going to work. I talked about this past Tuesday, those hypothetical thoughts people have, like, what if this happened? Or I missed this setup. Or imagine if this would happen. I hope this goes in my favor. You're forcing a setup based off your emotions of this could be the one, or maybe, oh, this setup looks too good to be true. Maybe you want to reevaluate, look at it from a different perspective, maybe zoom out on the time frame to see if you're missing something that you may not have caught right away. I usually don't rush into stuff. If you guys have noticed, when I'm looking for entries on specific setups, I'll always say I'm watching this. I'm not entering right now. I'm just watching it. I want to see how it moves. I want to get a feel for it. I want to find the best possible entry. And also, when it's at a main level, you don't want to enter out of hopes that's going to reject if you want a resistance to come back down. I don't want to enter calls at a support zone that I expect to bounce. I want to see how it moves for a bit. I find the setup where I want it. I watch it for about 5 to 10 minutes, maybe longer. I let the chart form so that it looks better in my favor. I wait for that setup to form, the anticipation of it. I'm not entering off, okay, this could be it. I want to wait until, okay, this is my possible risk. Maybe it's $50 a contract. And then from the winning side perspective, I'm looking at the chart. I'm not predicting I'm going to make X amount of percent, because if it does go up very slow in my favor, I may only get 10, 20% out of it. But if it happens right away when I enter, I could be at 30, 40% right away. So I'm only mentally preparing for the downside, because the upside is just if the chart's in my favor, I'm going to keep holding. You're readjusting the loss as you go in the green, because as it pushes higher, you have a new cut level half the time. Levels are going to readjust. You break a resistance, that now turns into a support zone. That could be your like stop loss. If now that you're above a heavy resistance, if we break back under and hold, I'm going to sell, because that's like the next level I have to respect. So you're adjusting the loss as you go green, but the loss you never adjust when you go in the red. You have to keep that the same, because that is always going to be a priced in guess or a priced in stop loss for you. That's the only thing you have to respect. And so with a lot of setups, you have to be very picky. You have to be conservative. You can't just buy in because you're bored. Like it's the same stuff at this point, guys. If you're not like picking up on that, you can't just do stuff because you're bored. You can't have that mindset of I just want to trade today because I haven't done anything. You check your phone or laptop at 3 p.m. or let's just say an hour before close based off your time zone. And you're just telling yourself, man, the market moves so much. I just want to try something. You don't want to put yourself in that situation. If you do, you need to figure out, okay, if I'm wrong, what can I learn from this? Okay, if I'm right, what can I learn from this? Don't just enter because, oh, I'm so bored today, or oh, I have about 20 minutes to check my phone real quick. Don't do stuff out of boredom. You should at least be watching a setup, I would say, for minimum 30 minutes before you enter something. I used to be one of those traders where, and this is 2, 3, maybe even 4 years ago, when I started to like slowly understand what I was doing, but I was still losing, obviously. I'd have like my main stocks I'd look at, and I would filter through them. Okay, I don't see no setup. Let me just find something else. Let me look at my watch list of every stock to see if something looks good. And then you'd look at a stock for, let's say, a minute, and you're like, oh my gosh, I got to get calls. This looks so good. Then you enter calls not knowing anything about the stock. You have no idea what it's been doing. You don't understand how it moves. You just saw it quickly and you were looking for a move or scavenging. You just want to enter something. That's not going to do anything for you long term. You're not going to understand why you did it. You're not going to learn from like a winning or losing perspective what you have to fix. And that's one of the hardest things about trading stuff like that. There's no learning experience. I know it sucks to treat trading like I don't want to say a job or anything, but you can't treat it like a casino or like you want to make money quick. It's going to throw you off. It's going to slow down the process way more. And you're not going to understand how to grow with this when you have the money you've always thought about having. So many people, they just want trading to work out. They have no idea how to do it. People that turn, let's say, $1,000 into 10,000, just because you have more money, it doesn't mean you're going to make more money. Just like the 1,000 to 10,000, you're going to oversize. You're going to take a few losses here and there. Next thing you know, you're back to $1,000. You could have withdrew. You could have sized the same as you did at 1,000. Now that you're at 10,000, there's no rush into this. There's no shortcut. It's all luck if you're looking at it for that perspective. If you just want to make money quick, there's no secret to it. It's just all luck at that point. You oversize on the right one, it goes in your favor. Sometimes sometimes when you do oversize for that one time, you lose and you lose majority of your portfolio. So there's always two ways to look at it. That's why you have to be consistent. You have to size the same with everything. Yeah, Mr. Trade, treat it like a business. I didn't want to say it because some people, they look at business like this is boring. If you truly love something, no matter if it's a business, a 9 to 5 job, whatever the case may be, if you love something, you're going to do it every day, no matter what the result is. Like for me, I treat trading like a business because whether I lose or win money, I'm showing up every day. I'm still happy. I plan to lose the amount I lost. There's nothing to be upset about. So if you understand after looking at a win or a losing trade, if you're sad about the day, you're not able to laugh about what just happened, you need to change the way you're sizing. You need to understand you may have entered something that you know you shouldn't have. And once you stop doing that stuff, all you're left with is wins. Like you're literally not going to do what's making you lose. Over half the trades retail takes is just stupid stuff. You enter when you know you shouldn't, but you still do it. The next thing you know, you repeat, you repeat, you repeat. That's why you lose half the time. It's going to be on you until you learn to protect yourself. Planning, risk management. But yeah, like Mr. Trade is like, go to Vegas if you don't want to treat it like a business. Trading, you can literally lose everything in one trade if you oversize and never sell. A lot of you are like, well, I would never do that. You can still lose everything, sizing properly and not selling for a loss when you're supposed to. Anything can happen. The past month has shed a light on my bad trades. Going from construction to trading, I'm used to constantly studying, staying busy. So I've been catching myself when I get bored and avoid to force a trade now. I'm starting to walk away from the computers at those points. Walking away is one of the most breathtaking things you can do. And I feel like many people don't want to walk away because what if I miss something? And what I always tell them is, okay, well, are you going to trade tomorrow? You going to trade next week? How about next month, next year, and 5? Like, if you're going to trade again, you're not missing anything. At any point, anything can happen. We can flush 200 points a day on SPX. We can go up 100 points on SPX. Maybe SPY drops 15 for no reason. Anything can happen, and we are like, all you can do is be prepared. You can't predict something. You can have ideas and thoughts, algorithmic ideas. Maybe there's like a level you're looking at for a reject. There's a lot of stuff you have to understand. And if you comprehend that and you realize, okay, I can lose X amount if I oversize, just don't do it. I mean, it's that simple. I find trading to be like a situationship, meaning every trade is different. You're also different in every trade. Yeah, every trade you should find a new thing to fix about yourself from a personality perspective. I know for me, I would go through so many different versions of myself that I wouldn't even know, like, I don't want to say what kind of trader I was, but I would just be confused. Like, okay, I have to figure out who I am to make trading work. Like, who am I as a person? Am I patient? Can I wait for things to grow over time? A lot of people that are impatient, they can't understand this may take a few years. This isn't going to take a few months to make $100,000. This may take a while. You may lose a lot of money before you understand how to make money. So there's so many different uh, emotions that you get tapped into, so many different versions of yourself that you kind of turn into and then you lose again and you find another person to turn into. Once you get down what you need, it's almost impossible to go back to that losing person as a trader. I mean, for me, I don't trade as much as I used to even 2 months ago, but it's just when the market's not in the favor that I need for my system, when it's not doing what I need it to, I'm not going to over leverage. I'm not going to force stuff because, oh, I made let's just say 10,000 last week. I have to make 10,000 again this week. No, I don't. All I have to do is not lose money. Whether I make $5, $10, $100, 10,000, 50,000, I'm not going to force that again the next week. I'm not expecting the same results. The market's always different. So when you realize that and incorporate also, I'm only trading the chart. I'm doing what the chart is doing. And then, like, win or lose, look over the trades. What is making me win? What do I have to analyze out of that to realize I'm making successful trades? What do I have to repeat now? Because once you figure out that quote unquote secret sauce, whatever you guys want to call it, you are never going to lose money again. If you stay disciplined, you understand how successful trades are happening. You need to realize once you get this, it's not going anywhere. It's only going somewhere if you lose who you just like turned yourself in to be to make this happen. You can't lose yourself. And as soon as you guys realize that, that's when that success will just roll in. And it's going to happen like unexpected. When it started to take off for me, it was one of those things where it didn't just like flip like a switch. It was just one day I started doing better, next day even better. I would have losses and not even be phased by them. Next thing you know, I'm pulling in 4 or 5 figures a week, now 4 or 5 figures a day. And as it grows, you're not like I was saying, you're not growing with the success. You're just growing with your system. When you trust your system, you're going to trade the same way. You're not going to freak out when something happens because you know the results. You know the risk, you know the reward, you know the overall probability to be right compared to wrong. So you're not phased by anything. Proper sizing comes into play, and that's really all you need. Does anyone here have any last second questions by any chance? Anything about this? Anything you want me to speak on from even my personal experience of being a trader for the past almost 5 years now? Any stories you want to hear about? Perez, bro, this is about what we talked about earlier. There's no questions. I'm all good on my end. Love this class today. Goose, I appreciate you, man. Appreciate you. Yeah, I think I'm good.